Hey folks, it's Matt once again, and welcome back to another review into my journey into the 1980s, from A to Z, year by year, starting with the year 1980. And of course, the next one is Alligator, which I guess this DVD's out of print. I did not realize that. Till my friend Mike OCP did his review. And yeah, I looked on it today, like the cheapest copy of this was like $33. And I'm surprised this has never gotten a Blu-ray release, whether it's from Screen Factory or some other company, because this is a well-known cult film, and also the fact that it's, well, out of print. I guess, sadly, there's not a lot of people streaming for this, but I think it deserves it, with a better cover. Again, this looks like something that would be Sci-Fi Channel SYFY, and it's much better than that. It's directed by Lewis Teague, who would go on to direct Cujo. I think Stephen King was actually a big fan of this movie, and he wanted Lewis Teague to direct Cujo. That's how Lewis Teague got the job. And then later on did Cat's Eye with Stephen King. And he also did films like Navy SEALs. But definitely one of my favorites of the director. There was an original script, or at least story, by Frank Ray Pirelli, which dealt with taking place in Milwaukee, and that it was beer was the reason, like beer suds that kept flowing into the sewers were the reason why the gator got so big. And something about how there was this mill that it's abandoned, but yet you push one button, everything turns on, and the gator would be slicing the pieces. John Sayles didn't like that. Neither did Lewis Teague. I believe John Sayles had worked with Lewis Teague on a film he had done before this. And John Sayles rewrote the film, and John Sayles did a great job on the script. Lewis Teague had worked with Robert Forster on the movie he did before. Robert Forster had a small part in it. I think it's called The Lady in Red, or it was something like that. Might have gotten the title wrong. And Robert Forster got to be the star, and he did an excellent job in this as Madison. David Madison. And yeah, this is a 1980 film. I can definitely say this will be one of the top films of the year I'm reviewing right now, 1980. Because I've always enjoyed this movie. I've always liked this film. Uh, I think I did a review 3 years ago that's still up. The title was "This is how you make a killer animal film, or a giant killer animal film." And I like how you do it. Because Sci-Fi Channel, they have so many of these fucking type of movies. They should look at movies like this. For $1.5 million, they use practical effects and miniatures to a really good effect. But you also have a very fun, witty script. You have a capable cast of actors led by Robert Forster. You have Michael Gazzo. You have Henry Silva. Good script, and it's well directed. And it never loses its focus. It's still and always, from beginning to end, a monster movie. It's a creature feature. It's not going on this tangent for 20 minutes and it's like, wait a minute, is this a killer alligator film, or is this trying to be a different movie? It knows what it is, and it's not pretentious or think it's thumbing its nose, has his nose up in the air saying, yeah, we're too good for this. They knew what it was and they went for it. And they also had a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but not too much to the fact that it gets annoying. Because you have the characters still taking the situation serious, but at the same time they know, it is a big alligator movie, but still they're committed to it. They're not phoning it in. They're not also being overly crazy, like, yeah, let's be wacky. This is a killer elevator movie. And they sold it well. And you have this guy who, I believe is a carnival, working with a gator, gets attacked, his leg gets bitten and fucked up, and one of the people watching is a little girl. And they get the guy to safety, and the girl wants a baby gator, and the parents get her one. She names her Ramon. And then, I don't know if it's day later or a few days later, pretty much the father gets pissed because I guess the baby gator went to the bathroom in the hamper, and I'm thinking, it's a baby gator about this big in this thing. How the hell did it sneak out? It's not Solid Snake. It's not gonna sneak in and sneak out. But I guess that's why he was yelling for his daughter, and she was at school or fair or something. And so she just, this asshole dad flushes the gator, baby gator down the toilet. And of course, it wasn't for this asshole doing that, dickhead father, dick cheeseburger motherfucker. Then, well, we wouldn't have a movie, and all these people wouldn't die because of his dumb ass. But yeah, the gator gets flushed down, and it's many years later, about 12 years later. And I guess the film takes place in Missouri, because in all these reviews, and even on Wikipedia, it keeps saying it takes place in Chicago. And maybe that's because Robert Forster and Michael Gazzo, they seem like Chicago people. But it seems like it's it is Missouri, because when the family at the beginning and the daughter, they're coming back, they're saying welcome to Missouri. And throughout the film, Robert Forster has a little bit past of what happened in St. Louis. Of course, St. Louis is in Missouri. And they talk about East St. Louis, and I mean, for example, I'm in Iowa. If I talk about a town and state, I'm just going to say, oh, Iowa City, Des Moines. But if you live in California, you don't say, you know, Des Moines, Iowa, or if you don't talk about Minnesota, like, I'm going to talk about Minnesota, I'm like Fairmont, Minnesota. Like, I'm going to put that sting on it. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but I just mentioned it because so many other reviews make this seem like it takes place in Chicago, and I think this takes place in Missouri. It's not a big deal, but it's just something I mentioned that I don't think the other people mentioned that are right. So, and there's not many films that I can think of that take place in Missouri. And I thought the score worked well. I know in the trivia it says that James Horner was going to do the score, and then something happened. He wasn't able to come in and compose it. So it would have been interesting to see what James Horner would have done with the score. At the same time, though, I do like the score. And for some reason, it's not saying on the back who did the score. But I thought it fit well with the flick. Like, the end credits are subtle, they're creepy. The end credits score I'm talking about. And throughout the film, you have a little bit of a Jaws vibe at times with the score, but in a good way. And it's understandable because Jaws is the film that anyone's thinking of, especially at this time. Well, even to this day, people still think about Jaws. When you think about killer animal films, big killer animal attack flicks. I mean, you had Grizzly, which I enjoyed. You had this film. But it doesn't really rip off Jaws. Like, Grizzly does rip off Jaws, but I think it's a fun film. This does not rip off Jaws. You don't have three people by the end trying to hunt the creature down and, you know, so on and so forth. I mean, you'd have Henry Silver comes in as a hunter, but I really would not call him a Robert Shaw character. And then he actually gets taken out pretty quickly, which is actually, when you think about it, surprising, because usually that's the type of character that would stay until the end. And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The humor works in the film very well. Robert Forster came up with the jokes with his hair thinning. He's talking to this pet shop guy. And actually, the pet shop guy, he's been in quite a few films, including One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, working opposite Jack Nicholson. And the pet shop owner's like, oh, yeah, I know how you feel. And if Robert Forster like, looked at him like, what are you talking about? Oh, you know, patch, you know, on the back, thinning in the front. Same thing, same thing. And apparently Robert Forster knew he was going through that, so he added that in. And it brings a certain humanity to the lead character, that this is a down-to-earth guy. Robert Forster, he's a great actor. I always say this is my favorite film that he's in. I mean, I like Jackie Brown for what it is, but I don't love it. I think it's okay. He was in a film called The Banker. I like the film for Robert Forster and for a couple other stuff. It's an okay film. But for stuff that Robert Forster, I would say this is definitely my favorite. He's just not many films that he gets to be the lead, and when he is, it's not a fun creature feature flick like this. It goes at a fast pace. It's about 90 minutes long, give or take. And he's just a regular guy, regular cop, trying to do his job. And he's given a good script to work with as well. And Robert Forster has a good down-to-earth charisma to him. And he's a likability to him. He's a guy that's easy to root for me to root for. He's a guy that I could see like blue collar type of guy. And the commentary on this is really good. Lewis Teague and after Robert Forster, they do a commentary together, and then you also have an interview with John Sayles. It'd be cool to have a Blu-ray of this with a better cover, keep the commentary and interviewer John Sayles, and maybe did new interviews with Lewis Teague or a new interview with Robert Forster before they're no longer with us. But hey, what do I know? They're too busy fucking doing Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2 and fucking other shit. I'd rather see a Blu-ray of this. Just my opinion. But you have some fun humor. Robert Forster picked up a dog, and these things start happening. They, for example, this arm gets found in a filtration tank. And they also find a dead dog, too. And Robert Forster speaks with his chief, Michael Gazzo, which he's really good in the film. He has a very deep voice. He's got a like white beard, and he seems like a guy that would be part of the mafia or something, but he's the chief of police. He's friends with Robert Forster. They have a little friendly relationship. And he's just a likable guy. As my friend Mike said, he's a no bullshit guy. But he's still a good guy. And they find the owner of this dog, and she's like, oh, it looks like mine, but it's so much bigger. And she holds like this tiny sweater. And then it cuts to the dog who's like gigantic. And Robert Forster's like, that sweater fit this dog 2 months ago? It's like a huge difference. And pretty sure you find out that pharmaceuticals are testing hormones and growth hormones on dogs. Specifically, they want puppies. And pretty much the pet shop owner, when the pharmaceuticals are done, they dump the he dumps the animals in the sewer. What's funny, now that I think about it, the arm that they find is a sewer worker named Ed Norton. Now, of course, back then, John Sayles was referencing the TV show The Honeymooners, because one of the main characters is a sewer worker named Ed Norton, played by Art Carney. And of course, nowadays, I just hear Ed Norton, I'm like, oh my god, Edward Norton got killed by a gator. He was a sewer worker, he got killed by a gator. Ed Norton. But you have some fun gallows humor that I will admit, I like Lake Placid. I do. But I do think this is a better movie. But I do like Lake Placid. But I do think this is a better movie. And I mention that because there's a bit of humor involving a toe. Which I realized in Lake Placid, there's also humor dealing with the toe. Only this one is, they don't show the toe, but they're talking about, one guy's talking about Robert Forster, or they found a toe and they had a funeral. And Robert Forster goes, must have been a pretty small casket. It's a pretty funny, witty dialogue by John Sayles, who's definitely an accomplished writer and also director. But yeah, the pet shop guy goes in the sewage, dumps it, gets eaten by a gator. And this is rated R. You definitely see some gore. Some legs get bit off and bloody stumps and blood will fly, unlike the sequel. Which I will do the sequel, even though it's not an 80s film and I'm doing an 80s marathon starting with 1980. I figure I will do the sequel just because, even though it's a 1991 movie, again, because it's Alligator 2 makes sense to me to at least talk about it. Which I'm not a fan of the sequel, because the sequel, all it did was it remade this film, only made it PG-13, even lower, it seems cheaper, and it didn't have the cast, or, well, there's some good stuff in the cast, but the star was not up to par, Robert Forster, and it definitely did not have a script up to par like this one did. And then the pet shop's owner, his leg just drifted to the tank, the filtration tanks. And this film did some ballsy stuff that, yeah, I do agree with my friend Mike when he did his review. For example, there's a scene where Robert Forster comes up and is talking with the pharmaceutical guys. He's like, very quiet. And guys ask Robert Forster, what? And Robert Forster's like, your dogs, they're very quiet. Oh yeah, we cut the larynx out just to cut down the noise. And you look at the dogs, and the dog's trying to bark, but he's like, how many movies are going to do that where it's a puppy and they've cut the larynx out? And of course, later on, you have a little kid that gets killed. Yeah, it's something they would not do nowadays too much. And also, it is refreshing to see a movie. Of course, it's 1980, so there was no CGI. But it shows what you can do with practical effects, and they had a very tiny budget. And yet, I thought it looked great. And then you have some miniatures, which I'll get on to, which I thought worked fine for the flick. And then, of course, real alligator usage. Once again, the humor works well. People still keep fucking Robert Forster about his hair. Oh, why don't you let your hair down and flip it across? No one will notice. There's a little confrontation with this guy who comes in with a bomb, or seemingly a bomb. Robert Forster's like, fine, you go ahead. You know what? I didn't want to be a cop anymore. He walks away. Another guy gets him, and it's not a bomb. It's actually a radio. And I like a moment before where the guy's like, I killed a man in the sewer. And the cop's like, you don't get this, Robert Forster? Robert Forster just whispers like, he says you wish, was like, it was about ready to leave. So it just seems natural, the humor. It doesn't seem forced, doesn't seem stupid, doesn't seem like it's a spoof. It just seems natural, like everyday people, what they would say, what they would do, how they would behave. And it goes up to Robert Forster and this cop named Kelly going to the sewer. And I love movies that take place in the sewer. And no, it's not just because I'm a Ninja Turtle fan. It's just a great location because it's claustrophobic. It's something that we can relate to because where you are, there's a sewer nearby. There's a manhole, and from what I understand, they're harder than shit to lift, but technically you could go in it and be there, and it's dark, and it's dank, and it's smelly, and there's cockroaches, and it seems like hell on earth, and it's claustrophobic, and who knows what could be lurking beyond that sewer tunnel. It's not something you have to go across country or go into the ocean. It's a perfect place for a monster that could be right where you're at. And films that I saw growing up, like Watchers 2 and Chud, and films like this, it was always nice to see the sewer location being used. I wonder, that might be also one of the reasons I enjoyed films like The Tunnel and As Above, So Below. Granted, they're found footage and they're technically not a sewer, but they're in a tunnel and it has that sort of same vibe as being in a sewer system. And those are the type of locations I really enjoy. I thought Lewis Teague did a perfectly fine job shooting for the low budget he had, as well as the lighting. You have this, first off, I find it kind of weird. The Kelly, the other cop, sneaks up and steers Robert Forster, but he steers him by grabbing him on the ass, which I found kind of strange. He doesn't just go boo or hit him on the arm. He literally comes up and grabs his keister, like, and Robert Forster like hits his head. He says something like, "You could have been shot, you asshole." It made me chuckle, but it was just kind of weird. It's like, okay, I'm gonna sneak up on them. That'd be like, okay, I have my friends Mike and Nefri. If I'm there, I'm not gonna sneak up and then grab him on the ass. Be like, here you go. Ah, why you grabbing me on the ass, Matt? Are you an ass, man? But it's just weird that that's what he chose to scare him. It wasn't on the shoulder or boo or with a flashlight. It's just, I'm gonna scare Robert Forster. I'm gonna grab him up the keister. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's your preference, but I'm just saying it was kind of a weird choice. But it was funny, and maybe that's why. What was more funny was the line Robert Forster said, "You could have been shot, you asshole." But there's also some good directing. There's a scene where Robert Forster and the cop are there, and they're trying to look at a map, and the guy puts his flashlight, and about, if you're looking at the screen, right here in the back is the alligator. And you see for about 3 seconds because of the light, like it's total blackness, and you see the light, so you see a peek of the alligator, and it's back to them with the map. So we, the audience, know, oh my god, we just saw the alligator in a flash, even though it's still there, but they don't know about it. I thought that was a really cool shot. It was a really that was a really cool thing, cool reveal, I guess, that for us and not our characters. But of course, the big ass motherfucking alligator surprises shit out of him, hits Kelly with the tail. They both run the ladder, and Kelly gets pulled away and dies. And Robert Forster, again, he's a very likable character. And what I like is he doesn't just forget about the guy. It's like, oh, well, that guy died. Because a lot of times movies will do that. Oh, this guy died, and then they forget about him in 5 minutes. But no, I mean, he feels bad. Later on, he has a nightmare about it. He mentions the guy's name. It's not something that he just forgets willy-nilly. Just, again, we've seen that many times in many kinds of movies. So even though he didn't know him for a while, he's like, hey, you know, this is the guy who was with me. Even for a short time, he was my partner. And of course, there's a little backstory about something that happened to him in St. Louis where he had another partner, and a guy put what he thought was a gun against his back, but it was a roll of pennies. He didn't know that, and then grabbed his gun and shot his partner, and he's still thinking about that as well. Sort of the director on the commentary mentioned about it's sort of as if he's facing his fears demons again, and this time, you know, put into a form of this alligator that if he can kill this thing, he can kill his demons. People say that's looking too far, but maybe that's what you have to do, even with a goofy idea. Maybe you have to do that, even think on those terms. And if you don't, then you get a shitty Sci-Fi Channel Roger Corman movie. So maybe you do have to think in that way. You don't have to be pretentious about it, but that could be something in the back of your head. And pretty much, one that leads to another, this dickish reporter goes into the sewer after overhearing some stuff Robert Forster was talking about gators in the sewer. He goes in, gets his ass killed. Nicely done that it's completely black. You just see flashes from the camera of his demise. And later on, the pictures are found, and they're pictures of the gator. And that's another interesting thing is that, well, I guess, well, it doesn't take till the finale of the movie until people start believing there's a creature. Just a lot of movies it's, oh yeah, you're crazy, or come on, you're crazy. But that doesn't last that long in this movie. It lasts for a little bit, but then about a third of the way into the film, boom, everyone knows there's a big ass alligator. It's not the cliche, we don't believe you and you're bullshit. You're crazy. They do that for a little bit, but then again, most of the film, everyone knows about it. which is for the better, because that way you get more stuff with the alligator fucking people up, and you get more of the chase and the trying to kill this thing instead of going the other way. You couldn't have all that stuff because it would make the plot even make less sense of people still going, oh, you're crazy. Yeah, these other 10 people just die from what looks like a deer, but you're still crazy. Here, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone is up to speed, like the audience is up to speed, and we can move forward. Move forward. And pretty much there's units and patrols of the sewers. They don't quite work out. This is herpetologist, this lady played by Robin Riker. She does fine in the role, and you realize she's the same girl we saw at the beginning of the film. And it is weird that they go with that because it never, nothing ever comes out of that. I guess it's just the irony that we, the audience, know, but these characters don't know and never know. Was that the same gator is the one that this person used to have, and they never realize it? But there's a part of me that maybe would have been interesting. Like, for example, if it had a certain scar, or had a certain deformity, or had a certain look of the gator, so that then she could put two and two together and say, wait, is that Ramon? Is that the pet I used to have? He had the same star, or the same design, or the same configuration or something. But that's not the story they were going for. But I will admit, there's a part of me that would have been interested in that, but maybe they're like, well, just put it like sort of an ironic thing and just move along with the story. But you do get some good pieces of good set pieces. For example, talking about, I was mentioned before about miniatures, this big ass alligator breaks out of the sidewalk, erupts out of it, and fucks up a cop car. Cop car's driving, you know, kids and people are running away from it. Nice crash and burn, crash, blow up, burn. The cop's leg gets bitten off. Definitely get some blood in there. And when the alligator's coming out of the sidewalk, it's well done miniature work for the sidewalk and the building. And nice usage of using a real alligator, because you can do that and fuck it up like those old movies in the 50s. But I thought this handled it very well. And it's definitely something I prefer over the crappy, cheap-looking CGI used nowadays. You have Henry Silva, who would be the bad guy and above the law, as the hunter, and he's going to take over. And then at the same time, all these people are trying to sell shit, which would happen in real life. Like, they're trying to sell toys, they're trying to sell dolls. Buy this thing, take it home. You know, make it jiggle, make you giggle. There would be advertising and people just trying to sell shit because of what's going on. Including a guy trying to sell Robert Forster's baby alligator. And he's like, bust this guy. For what? For being a creep. Henry Silva, he's fun. He's not in the film too much, but he's having fun. He's talking to this female reporter and giving signs of what a gator could make, calls, I should say, including a love call, where he's pretty much grunting right at the female reporter. And Robert Forster's looking into this pharmaceutical company and this guy named Slade, who's a rich fuck, old, bald, glasses, who's in pockets with the mayor. So, of course, the mayor doesn't like what Robert Forster's doing, so he gets him fired. He has a relationship with the girl, Robin Riker, which is fun. It's natural. It's not annoying. Plus, he gets some fun lines of dialogue. For example, she asks, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I'm going to find that deer. And he throws the keys, catches behind his back. I'm going to kick his ass. Definitely my favorite line in the movie. And again, the bodies are piling up. This kid in a pirate costume is made to walk the plank, which is his swimming pool. And a nice reveal where the mom is calling for him and pops up the light, and there's reveals that the big alligator's in the pool. Kid gets pushed over, and the kid gets eaten. It's surprising. It's done tastefully enough, but it's like, oh shit. Okay, this movie isn't fucking around. And then you have more fun dialogue between Robert Forster and the lady, Robin Riker, where it's like, when we go on this date, I'm going to be worried that you're going to come, when I asked you if you're going to come back home with me. And then she kisses him. He's like, can I take this as a definitive yes? And she's like, yeah. Henry Silva gets native guys, and pretty much very quickly he gets killed and eaten in a pretty fun scene. He's in the jaws of the gator and then gets swallowed up by the gator. So again, usually in these films the hunter would survive until the finale at least, but no, he's in it for like 5 minutes and he gets killed. Which I thought was a nice sort of change of pace. Try to be a little bit different with that. But I think what makes this film work is that you have a lot of scenes with the gator doing his business, which is what we're paying our money for, because that's what the movie's called, Alligator. But you also have good stuff with characters as well, likable characters, and that works with a fun script and a capable cast. Like when Robert Forster goes to see his girlfriend, his new girlfriend's mom, and even the mom, she has like a 2-minute role and she's fun. My husband, may he rest his soul, he always said I had an evil eye. Let me see if you can guess. Is it this one? Or is it this one? And then she's laughing, and it's making Robert Forster laugh. It made me chuckle, too. Or like when Robert Forster is talking, it's like, you have a doctorate, you have a wonderful mind, and you have beautiful tits. And then it also doesn't skip on the action. I mean, there's cops in this lake trying to find it. They accidentally go over the gator. It goes into the dock and it gets blown up, and one cop gets eaten, another gets both his legs taken out and bitten off. They pull him in, and his legs are just stumps are there. And pretty much they get to the rich guys in Slade Mansion. How this deer went from the ghetto, now they're at the rich fucks. And this is the rich fuck that started all, because he's the guy behind the pharmaceutical company that was dumping the shit. So it's kind of like there's a certain phrase for it. Is it? I guess ironic would be the, but for some reason I'm thinking of a different thing. I can't put my finger on it. But this gator fucks people up. It's biting and killing the maid, blood going everywhere, smacking his tail, people flying off, flying to the left, flying right, flying center. The dumbass mayor gets killed and bitten and smashed against the car. And then the asshole rich fuck Slade, the gator takes his tail and smashes shit out of the car and crushes it and crushes the guy until it's a pile of fucking nothing and crushes the Slade guy. And pretty much Robert Forster has to follow it to the sewers, has his dynamite and this timer. They got off that mad bomber guy, the timer. And it has some really good editing. Like the timer as he's crawling out of the manhole. It cuts to him crawling out, back to the timer, 5. Him crawling out, 4. Him crawling some more, 3. Him getting out of there, 2. Blows up. The gator blows up real good. And then the movie ends. You have some dialogue between the characters. And it kind of ends with a little bit of a sequel bait because another baby gator gets flushed into the sewers. And there was a sequel, even though it really has nothing to do with this because none of the characters come back and such. And like I said, the score I thought fit the film very well. And yeah, Alligator is how you do this kind of movie right. It really is, because you have a capable cast, you have a fun script, you have very witty dialogue, moves at a fast enough pace. It always knows that it's about a killer alligator. It's not trying to be about these people being evicted, or these people, the politics, or the real estate. It's like, no, it's about the alligator front and center, and how do we stop this alligator? And the characters around it. But you still have likable characters. You still have, I mean, and Robert Forster did an excellent job in this film. It just, everyone came up to the plate and hit a home run. That's what you did. I think one of the best creature feature flicks of the 80s. I would say this is one of the best creature feature flicks of the 80s. So this is a great movie, classic film. It deserves a Blu-ray. I don't know why the fuck some of these other films, like Garbage Pail Kids, is getting a Blu-ray, but not this. It's fucking bullshit. Anyway, that's my lengthy review for Alligator. Stay tuned for my thoughts on Alligator II, The Mutation. See you later.